Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We're excited to wrap up our three-part eero webinar series by focusing this time on Wi-Fi in retail and clinic environments and how to keep it reliable and secure. If you've missed any of our past presentations, including how eero is changing the rules of Wi-Fi for business, as well as eero for today's MSPs, just head over to our Wave YouTube channel and catch the replay. Now, both retail and clinic environments are spaces where connectivity really can't afford to fail. Whether it's a busy retail floor with multiple point of sale devices or a clinical setting with like patients and staff and equipment that's all relying on constant access, then the network plays a huge role in both the customer experience and your daily operations. And at the same time, most organizations, they don't want added complexity or extra IT burden to manage it all. And that's exactly why what we're gonna dig into today, how eero helps simplify these deployments while still delivering the performance, the security, and the visibility that these environments demand. I'm also excited to welcome back Rob Mustard, Head of Commercial Sales at eero, who will be leading today's session. Rob brings us great insight on how eero is being used in the field across multi-location businesses and these customer-facing environments. Rob is also going to walk us through some common challenges in both the retail and clinic settings and how eero consistently delivers coverage and performance in these high-traffic spaces, all while keeping deployment, management, and the scaling of your networks a very straightforward process. We're also joined by Karthik Iyer, Solutions Architect with eero, to help us with any questions that come in. And speaking of questions, please enter your questions in the Q&A chat window, and we'll make sure to get them answered for you. With that, I'll hand it over to Rob to get us started. Rob, please take it away, sir.
Jonathan, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you again. If I don't know if any of you joined our previous sessions. If you did, you'll know that Kartik's my technical backup. So please ask whatever questions you want, and I'll kind of look in his direction if I'm not able to answer it myself. If you have been on any of these sessions previously, some of these slides will be repetitive. I'm conscious of the fact that a number of people are not familiar with eero, so it's always good to give people a kind of a reintroduction, and it's always good to reinforce that for any of you that have seen it before. So let's get into it. Just first of all, where does eero sit in the greater Amazon organization? So eero was a standalone company. It was a startup in Silicon Valley, essentially founded about 12 years ago, and it was acquired by Amazon in 2019. And eero started in the consumer space. You may be familiar with eero as a consumer brand, and eero is, today a very successful consumer brand. We believe, the number one mesh Wi-Fi company in the United States, and selling more product than it's ever sold. But it has been moving more and more, and I'll talk to that, of course, into the business world over the last year or so. eero runs as a standalone company, as do all of the 100 or so different organizations that Amazon has. So when a company gets acquired, if it gets acquired, sometimes it gets created in the case of AWS or Leo, for example. But other companies that get acquired, they either get merged into an existing business or they run as a standalone entity. And eero runs as a standalone entity, still has the same CEO that it had, and was the founder of the company, a guy called Nick Weaver. So we operate very independently of the other parts of Amazon, but we also cooperate. And I'll talk to some of the cooperation that we do as we go through this. Obviously, we're all working for the same stock price at the end of the day, if I can put it that way. So it makes sense for us to cooperate, and we do a lot of stuff, especially with the AWS and the Leo guys. Okay. So what makes eero different from a product standpoint? And I'm going to talk to both the product and the benefit of working with eero from a business perspective. But from a technology standpoint, I'll tell you now, we're very proud of the hardware that we make. I mean, we're using industry standard reference designs, as everybody does. We work with the Qualcomms of this world, for example, and use their reference designs. But we very much are into designing our own boards. So we use the reference design as the reference, but then we lay out the boards ourselves, and build what we consider to be a premium hardware platform. And what's interesting is that's reflected in the failure rate of our product in the field. Our failure rate is a fraction of the industry standard. And when you work with resellers, MSPs, ISPs, et cetera, that's a very important criteria for them in choosing technology. We have some great mesh technology. I mean, a lot of business class deployments are going to be wired with power over Ethernet technology driving the devices, but in smaller retail outlets and clinics and distributed businesses, very often you're only talking about a handful. Maybe it's even only one or two access points. And in those environments, if meshing is easier to use, then let's leverage meshing. And we have a tech stack which we're going to talk to as we go through this a little bit. But you'll see that our North Star has always been, it was on the consumer side, and but our North Star on the business side as well remains all about simplicity and ease of use. So we like to put, if I can say it, more intelligence on the inside of the product. So you need less technical intelligence on the outside. And from a customer standpoint, that's obviously very important. Again, especially in small distributed environments where there perhaps and probably isn't any technical resource at that location. So I kind of touched on this already. Eero has been shipping products for about 14 years, no, 12 years, I think. It started 14 years ago, shipping product for about 12 years or so. Interestingly enough, of the multiple tens of millions of units that we've deployed, and actually we're up to 30 countries now, we are still supporting the hardware that we first shipped into the field all that time ago. So as well as ease of use and making great hardware, which is very reliable, we support the hardware for a long time. Which again, for organizations, especially in the retail world, where very often they operate on lower margins and need to sweat the assets. If you know that you're buying products which are still going to be supported by a vendor many years down the road, way past what you would typically expect, that's can certainly help with the decision-making process. So, as I said, we believe we're the number one mesh Wi-Fi vendor in the United States. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure. I think it may be on the next slide. Yeah, I'll talk to that. Whilst we're a consumer vendor, a lot of people assume that we sell, through Amazon.com and Best Buy and places like that. And you can certainly buy the products from those locations, but actually somewhere in the region of 60% of our business is delivered through ISP partners. And we work with somewhere in the region of 200 ISPs globally. And interestingly, in that ISP space, we are not the low cost provider. And here's a slide that will back that up. So you can buy cheaper products from other vendors. And a lot of the ISP partners that we work with today had been using those cheaper products, but they were experiencing a lot of technical issues reflected in a higher operational cost to them. So this is feedback directly from one of our largest ISP partners who has got millions now of Eeros deployed. On average, they see a 90% reduction in the number of incoming customer support calls after an Eero deployment, which, typically it's after the initial deployment that the support calls will come in. So that's an order of magnitude drop in the number of support calls. And then of the support calls that they receive, they are on average 25% shorter than all of the support calls that they would have received previously. And then probably the most compelling stat is that last one. Of the 10% of calls that they then do get, 96% of them get resolved with a single phone call. Remember, it's a 25% shorter phone call. So you add all that up, and ISPs would rather pay a few dollars more, but have a considerably lower operational cost. And obviously that benefit that we bring, and this comes back down to my comment about building great hardware, but combining that great hardware with ease of use, so things just don't typically go wrong, and you're not then looking for customers aren't having to call in. Okay, so from a business standpoint, what is our value proposition? We're building Wi-Fi products and a range of other technologies as well, and we'll talk to some of those. Um, why should a partner work with eero? And I put it into these three buckets, and I'll start with support. We have a world-class support organization based in the United States. We provide support all over the world, and we do have support people based all over the world. But we're an American company, and our support headquarters is based out of the United States, and we already have a very high bar which we have to follow. As I mentioned, we have these 200 ISP partners that we work with, and they set a high bar for us. But we combine support with a high level of availability on the product, as I mentioned, and we back that up with some great hardware warranty capabilities. The second point, and I'll repeat what I said, is ease of use, and I combine ease of use two ways. There's ease of use in terms of the products themselves, and then ease of use and simplicity in terms of the way that we are able to transact with our partners and our customers. So, from a hardware and software standpoint, in the business world, as much as possible, we want to limit the number of SKUs. So we make it easy. If we can just get away with one or two products. So rather than having a whole range of different products for you to choose from, if we can make one high performing product, but price it at a level which says, even if you want an entry level price point, an entry level product, well, this product does what I want. It just happens to have a high spec. Well, that's great. Everyone wins. Fewer SKUs for us to have to support, fewer SKUs for partners to have to stock and hold and maintain spares, etc. And the customer gets a great product. So we do that for the hardware. From our software SKUs, in terms of subscriptions and things like that, again, we try and limit things so there's essentially one SKU. You subscribe to the SKU that's available, and you're going to get everything that we can provide. And then you'll also find with payment options, we do offer 1, 3, 5 year subscription options, the same as most other enterprise type vendors would do. From our standpoint, we do the same thing, but we will also offer a pay monthly option as well. And then lastly, on the competitive pricing standpoint, we do have you will find that compared to competitive companies out there, our hardware cost is pretty low, probably less than half to a third of the price that you're going to see from other well-known vendors. If you combine that with the ability to pay for subscriptions on a monthly basis, if you want to do that, you're typically looking at a total cost of ownership over a 3, 5, 7 year period that's going to come in at half the cost of the traditional solutions that are out there. And I'll refer you back to point one then as well. I mean, there are vendors out there who are known for providing stuff at very, very low cost, but they don't back that up with a world-class support organization. Or if they offer any level of support, there's always some compromise about which products you have to purchase. There's no compromise with eero. You're going to get great products at a great price with a world-class support organization backing it up. Okay, so let's look at small distributed business. We do a lot of work these days, and we have a number of partnerships in the quick service restaurant, which is a classic example of distributed retail, and that they have a lot of business class requirements, which our products today meet. If you're familiar with eero, you may think, well, you're a consumer brand product. It's shocking the number of people that we speak to that say, yeah, I use eero at home. It's great, but I don't think it will meet my business requirements. It doesn't have the features and functions. I use the app that I can download for free to manage everything, and then it only has 2 SSIDs, and it's super easy to use and deploy, and it's great, but it doesn't give me the features and functions that I need. Well, it actually probably does. almost certainly does, in fact. It just depends on the management tool that you're using. So all eero products essentially run the same software. You know, we allow sort of the latest one, two, or three versions of software, but essentially all products are pretty much running the same iteration of software, which means all the products can pretty much support the same capabilities. But depending upon the management tool or the lens that you're looking through is going to define what you can see. So whilst if you download the free app, yeah, sure, the product only supports two SSIDs, super easy to set up, everything's wonderful. Um, if you were to use our cloud management system, and I'll talk to that a little bit as we go through, which is called Insight, which, if you're using that, by the way, will give you a slightly different version of the software that you can download and run as an app. Suddenly, you go into a new world. Okay, so that same device that you were using that with your free app that only had two SSIDs, suddenly you can do a whole host of different things. Um, and in fact, if you run our business class version of management, we support multiple SSIDs, up to eight SSIDs. In fact, six through Insight and two additional ones with APIs. We support VLANs. We support 802.1x. All the business class features that you're likely to need, and a whole host of others that I haven't mentioned. I've just mentioned obvious ones. But this technology has been under development for the last 18 to 24 months. Um, and we're working with some very large organizations who are helping define the feature map that they require. So net, we have a solution which is probably, we're highly confident, going to meet the requirements of certainly distributed retail, mid-market, and we will continue to move up the food chain and watch this space over the course of the coming months and quarters.
And Rob, if I may interject real quick, I highly recommend after watching this webinar that everybody heads over to the eero website, check out their blog, the blog about Five Guys restaurant here. I actually read it a few days ago, and it's quite impressive. It's a 10,000 square foot location. They have 150 employees there. It's the largest one in North America, but what really stood out to me is how many checkout stations they have, self-serve kiosks, POS terminals, and how eero was able to basically provide their entire location with perfect coverage with zero downtime. So it's definitely a really good read, good watch. I really recommend everyone head over there afterwards and check it out.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm gonna show you the range of products that we have as we go through this. But hopefully the point of this slide was to just to reiterate. Please don't assume that just because eero is a consumer brand product and known for that, that we don't have the capabilities that you would need. Okay, so if you've been on previous sessions, I've very much focused on the PoE products previously, but we know that from the distributed businesses, whether it's quick service restaurants or other, very often actually the tabletop or bookshelf type products is more than enough, and people actually would prefer that. They don't necessarily want to start running cables and ceiling mount their access points. If they do, great. Obviously, we're happy to support those products, and we have those products. But if they want tabletop products, then we have tabletop products. And whether it's Wi-Fi 6, dual band or tri-band, or whether it's Wi-Fi 7, dual band or tri-band, we have those products. And we have indoor products and we have outdoor products. And we have our eero PoE gateway, which is that device bottom right. And that's something that you can use if you need Ethernet switch ports. You can use that product as an Ethernet switch. Provides PoE over eight ports. They're all up to 2.5 gig per port, and then there's two additional 10 gig ports which aren't PoE. And you can use that device to connect directly to your internet connection, and we support security capabilities within that product as well. If you need more Ethernet ports, you can daisy chain the devices. But we have new new products and technologies that we'll be announcing over the course of the year. So make sure you stay close to the eero website, which will be having some updates done to it in the months and quarters ahead as we announce new technologies. Now, one of the things that's very important in small distributed retail environments is support for point of sale. I mentioned we work with a number of point of sale vendors. When you go into a small business environment and somebody comes to your dining table or whatever it is, when you go to the desk of a clinic, whatever, and you do your transaction, very often that transaction is going over Wi-Fi. It may not be. It may be going just over the Ethernet connection. But the point is, there is a financial transaction going on, and the last thing that a business wants is for there to be a WAN outage. The internet service goes down, and then you're no longer able to transact. So to help solve that problem, eero has developed a device which we call Signal, and Signal is available today as an LTE device, but it will also be available as a 5G RedCap device, which will look identical to the LTE device. But that the 5G RedCap version will be available within a month or so, and then you can choose between the two products. So its Signal is specifically designed, just in full transparency, it's designed as a backup device. So you wouldn't use Signal as your primary WAN connection. Um, it monitors the primary WAN circuit, and if the primary WAN circuit goes down, it will fire up a cellular connection, and everything will then be routed through that that Signal device to maintain your connectivity. Now we ship Signal with a multi MNO eSIM. So in the United States, we actually have agreements in place with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, and it's a multi-MNO SIM. So you as the partner or the customer, you don't have to choose a specific mobile network operator. The data plan that we provide with Signal supports all three operators dynamically, and it will just automatically select the operator which can provide the best coverage at any given moment in time, and it will even switch between them if it needs to. Um, if you do want to bring your own data plan, that is an option. There are some caveats around that in terms of volumes and things like that. But if you have such an interest, let's have that conversation. Okay, so Signal is designed ultimately as a backup device. I should also add, it's designed to back up an eero deployment. And what I mean by that is it as you can see at that bottom bullet point, it connects to another eero device via USB-C. So this is not an Ethernet connected device, it's a USB-C connected device. It assumes there's going to be another eero product in the network. And it could just be one other eero access point. So you may have an existing deployment. There could even be other access points and other switches there. If you want to deploy eero to help back up that network, you can, but it will require an eero access point. It could just be one of our Wi-Fi 6 access points or any of our Wi-Fi 7 access points. They all have USB-C ports, and Signal would plug into that and provide the backup for the entire infrastructure that you have. Okay. Now we do get asked why not build eero the Signal into the gateway, for example, and have the cellular capability built into that gateway. The answer to that is, I mean, of course, you could do that, but very often the gateway sits in a metal rack, 19-inch rack in the middle of the building, and it isn't necessarily the best place to get a cellular signal. So by allowing you to connect it directly to any of our access points, you can essentially choose a location in the building where you have an access point deployed that's got the best cellular coverage and connect it at that location and hopefully provide good backup connectivity at that point. Okay, so when you're in the business of supplying organizations with great Wi-Fi, great support, you need great management tools. And I touched on this. We provide an app which is fantastic for consumers. But when we move into the business world, we need something quite a lot more sophisticated to support not just all those additional capabilities, but also potentially the scale. Um, and the great news is we have this product called Insight, which we run on AWS, of course. And you may think, well, is Insight another new product which is at this point still immature? The answer to that is no. Insight's actually been around for 7 or 8 years because we built it for our ISP partners. And so it's a very mature platform. We have, of the 200 or more ISP partners that we have today, we have several that are actually supporting millions of eeros on their account of Insight. From a partner standpoint, we support multi-tenancy. So if you end up supporting lots of customers in through Insight, you can go in, choose the specific customer that you need to support, and just see information on their account. You can also give them access. You can give them, full read-write access, or just, view only, whatever you need. And there's, uh, we could spend an hour just going into all the levels of capabilities and functionality that we have within Insight. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. And I would strongly suggest, if you want to know more about Insight, and that's very often the piece of technology that we have that people want to dig into, let's set up a separate session, and we can do a sort of a live demo, and get into whatever it is that you need to understand. But the great thing about Insight is it's not just this management tool, as it says here. It's a provides very high level overview. We're building a lot of it, as you would expect from an Amazon company. A lot of AI technology is being built into this. Um, we're currently eating our own dog food in our own support centers, and we use the AI and Insight to provide proactive troubleshooting capabilities. We're reaching out to customers in advance of issues happening, saying that we know the system is starting to provide indications that you may start to experience, or your customer may start to experience issues in certain environments. So it's a fantastic product, and I highly recommend you to spend some more time with us getting into the details of it. Okay. I'm maybe not going to dwell too much on this slide, except to say, security is when you move into the business world, security goes hand in hand with everything that you do. So we do support things like WPA3 encryption, which we do. We support WPA3 encryption at the for a personal level for consumers, but we also support WPA3 enterprise, which is in the business world is a not an option. I mentioned .1x and radius authentication. We have ACLs, DNS filtering. Um, a great feature and a good example of the cooperation that we have with AWS is our encrypted site-to-site VPN capability. So I'll give you another example of where this is relevant. We were in a meeting with again with a point of sale vendor in fact, who runs their business on AWS. And as they roll out every location, they're setting up site to site VPNs. They bring each customer site into their um, software suite on AWS, and they do it through a VPN. Anybody can set up site to site VPN with AWS. But it's a bit of a process. It's not a trivial thing to do. You need to know what you're doing. Um, the great thing with eero, with being a trusted device and part of the greater Amazon organization, when you're in Insight, you can literally just check a box that says, set up site-to-site VPN. In the account for that customer, you put the VPC details for that customer, and as you roll out each location, it will just automatically set up an encrypted VPN. Okay, so it's not that it's something that you can't do anyway, but in terms of ease of use, it's just two orders of magnitude simpler and faster to set up than you would otherwise have. Okay. Um, PCI compliance, that relates to credit card transactions over Wi-Fi, and specifically the requirement to support VLANs and things like that. So, we allow customers to support concurrently both guest networks and their point of sale network on the same physical Wi-Fi infrastructure. We have that capability, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a whole host of additional uh, security capabilities that we're going to be adding. And in fact, we're kind of getting near to the end of my presentation here, but I mentioned we work very closely with AWS. There are a whole raft of security related capabilities that are going to be coming. All of these things typically get delivered at the edge and will get delivered through whatever you put at the edge from eero. Some of those capabilities will be within the products themselves at the edge. Others will be in the cloud. And they may be capabilities that eero is running in the cloud. They may be capabilities that AWS is running in the cloud. But either way, they'll be delivered. And through Insight, is everything will be set up in Insight, so you can very easily go in and select the capabilities that you need, and it will all be delivered um, at the edge. So just a quick summary as to where we fit today and where we're going. So eero has been supporting what I would describe as smaller networks for some time. We have, as I mentioned, somewhere in excess of 100,000, probably more like 200,000 small businesses using eero technology today. Um, but we have the ability now to move into larger environments, and you can see some of the examples now. And so we're supporting network deployments of up to 100 access points, but that number is going to continue growing. So, candidly, the devil is in the detail. I'm not going to go into it here, but depending upon the type of customer that you have, we should have conversations about what those customer requirements are, and we can determine the way that we architect the different types of setup options that we provide to best serve that customer. Um, but if you're supplying business class solutions today from other vendors, then you're now in a position where you can add eero to your quiver, and please invite us to the table so that we can give you the our recommendation for how we would solve that customer problem. I'm just going to quickly run through this just to finalize. So why eero again? You'll find that our hardware cost is highly competitive relative to alternatives, while still providing you with that world-class level of support. Um, Very competitive software subscriptions, which will provide you the opportunity to pay for on a monthly basis, or alternatively paying annually or multi-year upfront. We have access points for tabletop and PoE, and by the way, even those tabletop products can support these business class capabilities as well. And everything is designed for partners. So if you have your own management screens, your own single screens that you use to manage customers, so when you're supporting different products, everything that we do is multi-tenanted from Insight, but also API driven. We're an API first company, so in fact, you'll even find when we add new capabilities, very often it's only available via API initially. You can't necessarily support it through Insight, but you can get it through an API. So everything that we do is with our partners in mind. Okay, so if you're interested in what we've discussed today, please go back to your Wave account manager. We're happy to go and give you deep dives on where we're going next. We will require an NDA for that, but we have some interesting technology roadmap conversations that we can have, and as I mentioned, we can get into the weeds on what's available in Insight. But then, yeah, if you're interested in partnering with us, we have a partner agreement that you can execute. We're happy to provide you with some demonstration gear, which you can use with your customers, and training, of course. And we look forward to working with you and getting involved in some opportunities that you may have. So I'm going to stop there, Jonathan. And if we have any questions, we're happy to take them, and I'm happy to pass them on to Kartik.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for walking us through that. We
Thank
do have a few questions to get through if time allows, so let's just dive right in here. The first one is what happens when the internet drops? Does the internal network stay functional for POS, EMR, or local traffic?
So yeah, I'll answer that, and if I miss anything, Kartik, let me know. I mean, as I mentioned Signal. So if you have an Eero deployment and you have Signal, Signal, which is our cellular backup device, um, it's not active until it needs to be active. So it sits there monitoring your primary internet connection. So on the assumption that your local area network is still up and running, your access points, even if whether they're Eero access points or not, but your existing infrastructure is running. If you have Signal deployed, which is going to be deployed in conjunction with at least one Eero access point, it's monitoring that primary internet connection. When it goes down, if it goes down, it will fire up a cellular connection, and that infrastructure will then route the traffic. You know, your default gateway for everything is now going to say, okay, this connection has gone down. My gateway, my access to the internet now is through that Eero signal device, and all traffic will be sent through that Eero signal device. So all of your traffic connectivity is maintained. And then when that primary internet connection comes back up, Eero will shut down the cellular connection, and everything will now route back through your primary internet connection.
Very good. Thank you. Another question here is what kind of logging and audit trails are available for troubleshooting intermittent issues or compliance requirements?
Kartik, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a great question there. So something that we focus on is making sure there's every single thing that's going on in a network is logged. That's available at a network level, in audit logs, and also event streams. So even if there's a new device that gets connected, some admin logs in and they're changing any configurations as small as changing a port on the device. Each and everything is logged and it's available at a network level on Insight. And not just that, the exact same data is available to consume in various other streams. We do provide data as a service where you can consume any and every change that goes into all of the networks into either a CSV format or just get a raw data dump into your own systems in S3 bucket, or also get the same information through APIs just to look at what changes have happened in a network, and just to get that deeper understanding of how things have gone wrong in a network if there's something.
Excellent. Thank you, Karthik.
Mhm.
Another question here. What tools are available for remote packet capture or deeper debugging when basic dashboards aren't enough?
Yep, that's a great question there. So something that we are building on right now is having your device run as your remote packet capture. It's still in trial internally, and we are going to be releasing it pretty soon. But that said, when dashboards fall short, that's when we have that data available to consume and build your own dashboard. Every single thing that you see today on Insight and any data that we have available could be ingested onto your own instances in S3 bucket, and you could create your own Grafana dashboard if the Insight dashboard is not good enough for you. So that's something we provide. That's the data as a service part of it, which will follow through with the remote packet capture in the future releases.
Great. Thank you. It's good to hear that the dashboard is customizable.
Yeah.
Another question here is more about the process of rolling out a network. What's the process for large scale firmware updates across 50 plus locations? Am I able to stage, schedule, or roll them back?
So I mentioned before, we you know we control the software releases, and we have some, how can I describe them, close, especially on the ISP side, business partners who allow us to roll out software updates to them first. They kind of have their own guinea pig environments, if you will. So you know we always have a very high level of confidence before we start doing large scale rollouts. Um, so first releases of software go to the sort of closer partners who allow us to roll out early releases, and then we start to push stuff out. Now we do support, as I mentioned, I think it's three releases. Carly, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
Three
correct.
releases of code, and you can set a preference for being a later adopter of the technology as opposed to an earlier adopter of the technology. But you are required. Everybody is required to keep within the sort of the three levels of releases. So you can get to choose when it happens within that window of the fact that you have to be on a certain minimum level of release.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Another question. How does VLAN support work in practice? Are there any limitations on segmentation or integration with existing switching infrastructure?
Karthik, I'll
I
let
can
you
take that
handle
one.
it. Yeah.
So we do have VLAN support. Of course, like Rob mentioned, we have different types of networks that we offer, but we do have VLAN support at a per SSID level and also using same VLAN creation for multiple SSIDs. The
Okay.
same thing trickles down to all of our eero devices that support wired ports. So it's access points, eero PoE gateway, all of that could be tagged at individual ports on what subnet you're going to use. So say for example, you have four different VLANs that you have created. Individual ports could be assigned to different VLANs on the access point wired port as well, and the switching, that's eero PoE gateway. So that's something totally we support today.
Good deal. Thank you, Karthik. And we have time for one more question here. Squeeze one more in here. How does roaming actually behave with real devices, especially in motion heavy environments? They included some examples like iPads, scanners, or VoIP handsets.
So
Yeah.
we implement the all the roaming standards for Wi-Fi, which is XK and R 802.11x, K and R. I think they're the right numbers.
Yeah,
Karthik.
11 RKV is
RKV,
that's
sorry, there you go. I got my alphabet soup incorrect. They all have certain things that they do, and I'm the wrong person. Karthik can probably talk to it. But so we implement the standards, but better than that, in the in the in a meshing deployment, the way that we implement meshing is we have a mechanism for standardizing the radio channels across radio. Depending upon whether it's 2.4 or 5 or 6, we standardize the radio channels, which works brilliantly well for small deployments. And again, in distributed retail type environments, that's very often, we're only talking about having a small number of access points. It works brilliantly well when you have devices, multiple access points, but they're on the same channel. It makes roaming super easy because the device itself doesn't have to scan and make a decision about changing channel. So you'll find that roaming in an eero world, especially in our sort of meshing or smaller deployment world, works really, really well because of the way that we architect the solution. When you get into the larger, what I would describe as more traditional setups, where you're doing, radio resource management, and every radio is choosing its own channel and trying to optimize like that, because we support all these industry standards, then you know our roaming will work as well as any other vendor's roaming will work, with the caveat, and this is true for everybody else, does the client device itself support things like, RK and V? And not only that, does the application itself lend itself to roaming? Because very often, Wi-Fi was never built with an expectation of roaming. It was built on the expectation that somebody would open their computer, they were static, they were going to sit somewhere and they'd have a great connection, but not that they were going to be moving around. So a lot of these roaming capabilities and standards that have been created have been implemented to try and alleviate the underlying problem, which is that Wi-Fi was never ultimately designed to support roaming. So we're in a great place. Roaming generally works very well. It works even better with eero in our smaller deployments, and we're the same as everybody else in the larger deployments. But you always have to caveat it with what is the client device and what is the application.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, everyone who submitted some questions there. We appreciate your interaction and your participation. And this brings our webinar presentation to an end. As always, thank you, Rob, for pulling together very useful information and insight for us. And also thank you to Karthik for jumping in and to get those questions answered. This presentation, it really helped us open up our eyes a little more to, many more deployment possibilities, and shows us that eero was built specifically to handle these demanding environments. Now, today's presentation will be shared, as mentioned previously, on our Wave YouTube channel, as well as social media. So please make sure that you follow us and subscribe to be in the know of any future releases. And if anyone listening has questions or a deployment in mind, let's put you in touch with one of our wireless engineers to easily plan out and roll out your next eero deployment. Just shoot us an email at info@waveonline.com to get started. Well, take care of yourselves and of each other. Until next time, everyone.
Thank you.